Now, if you know anything about the terrifying world of the SCP Foundation, you will know that entries titled XK Extinction Level Event is usually tantamount to what is otherwise known as a very bad thing. If you've seen our recent End of the World Theories video, you'll know that our reality is jam-packed full of scientific calamities that could make this whole thing go boom. But fiction has the privilege of imagining the most painful and excruciating ways that the world can end. So let's take a look, shall we? Hello horror fans, and welcome back to the scariest channel on YouTube, Top 5 Scary Videos. As always, I'll be your horror host, Jack Finch, as today we peer back through the terrifying archives of the SCP Foundation and take a look at the top 5 SCPs that can end the world. Roll the clip. For those of you that are curious, that clip was from the awesome 2012 release, The Cabin in the Woods, and I have nothing more to add other than the fact that it is a fantastic movie, and if you haven't seen it yet, you should. Without further delay, let's slide on in. Kicking off at number 5, SCP-2317, and I'm sure you'll all appreciate this fact, but this video is going to have a lot of jumbled numbers throughout because you know that's how catalogue systems work, right? Well, let me introduce you to SCP-2317, which is the perfect way to demonstrate the levels of secrecy that the SCP Foundation operates. So much so that depending on what level of security clearance you have, the more you'll know about 2317, and the more you'll realise how absolutely screwed we'd all be if it ever got out. Essentially, SCP-2317 is a locked wooden door that leads to an alternate reality. Inside that reality is a demonic, anomalous entity that swallows planets whole, yet is supposedly locked away by 7 bones of another of its own species, binding it in a ritual that by all accounts will prevent the end of all existence. The thing is though, 6 of those bones are broken, and now there's only 1 of those bones preventing it from escaping. The Foundation goes to great lengths to fabricate a ritual which involves human sacrifice, which it tells its lower ranking staff will prevent said end of the world. Spoilers though, it doesn't, and all it does is serve as a way to mentally distract everyone from the inevitable end of all life. Whew, heavy stuff. Coming in at number 4, SCP-2399. Now, it's important to note that there's a slim chance that SCP-2399 won't be a world-ending catastrophe after all, and its intentions are to simply land on Earth and usher in a new age of technological prosperity. But really guys, would we ever want to take that risk? Because I wouldn't. In short, SCP-2399 is a massive alien continent-sized complex mechanical structure that was on course for Earth before it was caught in the gravity of Jupiter's moon of Io, causing it to become stranded on the gas giant, automatically activating its self-defense protocols, resulting in what is now known by astronomers as the Great Red Spot. Now, SCP-2399 constantly dispenses fleets of small drones that slowly repair it, and as far as the latest update goes, it's nearly ready for completion. The thing is, it's encased in an indestructible force field that the Foundation currently has no way of even denting or even scanning to figure out what the hell is going on underneath there. Their latest plan was known as Protocol Legionnaire, which essentially was firing a volley of nuclear warheads enough to wipe out civilization 1,000 times over. And guess what? Not even a dent. Whatever's under there has got the Foundation spooked, and in all likelihood will result in the end of the world as we know it. Hey, that's a song, right? Next up at number 3, SCP-3003. If any of you have a fear of the uncanny, then this one's for you, because if the thought of being parasitically overthrown by a sentient alien bug sends shivers down your spine, then let me introduce you to SCP-3003, otherwise known as the end of history. Essentially, 3003 is an Earth-sized planet 208 light years away from our Earth, but aside from distance, is near identical to our own. However, it possesses a population of over 30 billion and is exponentially more technologically advanced than our civilization, down to one small but significant difference. SCP-3003 is controlled by a beetle-like organism that parasitizes human life and wants to bring Earth under its influence. Because of its ability to enslave human life under its hive mind, the planet of SCP-3003 has become highly advanced and is nearly at the point of becoming an interstellar civilization, where it will arrive on Earth and infect us all with its mind-controlling amoeba-like organisms. The thing is though guys, the 30 billion humanoids already under its control are possibly the happiest people in the universe. They're healthy, they're happy, they don't partake in violent behaviour and abstain from military conflict. They have a resistance to pain and diseases and are genetically engineered to be the best spacefaring species that they can be. But they also lack all semblance of free will and self-determination, so get the hell away from my brain, you damn alien bug. Swinging in at number 2, SCP-3007. Whew, this one's a doozy. And SCP-3007 is what is known in the Foundation as an info hazard, a key to class info hazard, which in other words means it's really bad. An info hazard by nature wants to be spread via knowledge and awareness, and as we all know, you can't kill an idea. Essentially, 3007 is a simultaneous dream that people have, which exhibits them walking through a strange world, not unlike our own. If they're injured in that world, they're injured in real life. If they die, they die. And there's an entity imprisoned within it that wants nothing more than to bleed out into our world to do the same. It's known as the Red. Now there's a lot to this skip and the canon surrounding it is very intricate, but essentially the Red is an anomalous entity that attached itself to a highly advanced alien civilization that had reached space exploration and stumbled upon it. Over hundreds of years it used this unfortunate civilization as its plaything, twisting and contorting them into monstrosities and warping their world for its own sadistic pleasure. And guess what? It wants to do exactly the same to our world and is slowly luring people to its awareness through the power of dreams. Currently, the only way to contain this spread is to terminate all people who become aware of the info hazard, and as far as plans concerned, there is none. Oops. And finally, at our number 1 spot, SCP-001 SDL. Alright, as far as fiction goes, SCP-001 When Day Breaks is one of the most masterful and horrifying stories told throughout the entire Foundation, and it's a testament to exactly what the SCP multiverse can produce. Now, there's no clear definition on what SCP-001 is, and instead there are over 30 different proposals which keep the whole thing ambiguous. One of those proposals is SDL, or When Day Breaks, and it gives a whole new meaning to Don't Go Into the Light. Essentially, SDL is an extinction level event where the sun has turned everyone on Earth into an amorphous goo, which still retains its sentience and essentially reduces Earth's population to malevolent flesh zombies. What is left is a bleak, inhospitable world for its survivors, people on the edge of existence, roaming the wasteland, trying to stay in the shadows and avoid the roaming hordes of melted flesh zombies. What makes it worse though is that the amorphous goo has a tendency to combine into each other, meaning that a large bulk of the 7 billion people on the planet have become burbling, breathing masses of sentient, fleshy goo. And they want you to join them to step out into the light and be melted by the sun. Whew. I'd take regular zombies any day. Kicking off at number 5, SCP-2700. And really, this should be at the top of our list in terms of calamity, but we recently covered it in our cursed SCP items list, so no, get to the back of the line, SCP-2700. As we said in our other list, stock for stock, this item is potentially the most devastatingly powerful item in the entirety of the SCP Foundation's arsenal. As the record states, SCP-2700 is a complex mechanical device believed to be a vessel of sophisticated directed energy. The device itself consists of 3 components: the interface, the accelerator, and the core, and it was developed by the legendary Serbian physicist and renowned inventor Nikola Tesla. Yes, exactly, the Nikola Tesla. On the surface, the Foundation portrays this ingenious object as merely a miraculous relic left over from the legendary inventor's legacy. But as is the same with many things in the SCP Foundation, all is not as it may seem. To boil it down, SCP-2700 is a weapon of such immensely insane power that a single firing wouldn't just destroy all life on planet Earth, it would destroy all life in the universe. Well, I say destroy in the most tentative term because a better word would be reset. SCP-2700 behaves inversely regards to entropy, and if you fire this weapon, it would cause a chain reaction that essentially causes a reverse Big Bang. Maybe the universe would completely reset itself, maybe it wouldn't. I don't really want to find out. Do you? Coming in at number 4, SCP-990. And I love this skip because SCP-990 reminds me of both the Observer from Fringe and the conspiracy suits from the X-Files, except this guy is a little more forthcoming with his mysterious intentions. SCP-990 is one of the few items in their canon that the Foundation isn't entirely sure whether he's trying to help humanity or destroys all entirely. Currently, there is no known containment procedure for SCP-990 for one simple reason: he only appears in dreams. Essentially, he's a much more stylish Freddy Krueger. Sorry Freddy, just with less claws and even less plastic reality. As the record states, SCP-990 generally appears as a human male dressed in a Cold War era business suit who appears to Foundation personnel through the power of dreams. So far, no members of the Foundation have encountered this guy in the real world, and if he corresponds to an actual physical human being, then he's yet to be found. Essentially, 990 appears with the intention to warn people of disastrous events, and anything that he warns of inevitably comes true. Now, the Foundation aren't sure whether he's actually causing these events or just being a good dream Samaritan, but his most startling revelation is the end of the world, and his warning is focused on a yet to be revealed SCP. I guess we'll just have to wait and find out. Next up at number 3, SCP-001, When Day Breaks. Now, this is an interesting one because if you know anything about the SCP Foundation, you'll know that their first entry in their archives, SCP-001, is ambiguous in its origin and is made up of over 20 different entries, all of which may or not be the real SCP-001. Sound a bit confusing? Well, essentially, SCP-001 is brimming with potential red herrings to keep the Foundation's motivations and goals a secret. One of these is SCP-001 SD Locke's Proposal, also known as When Day Breaks, and if it is a genuine entry, then we're all kind of screwed. In the worst possible way. As the record states, When Day Breaks is an Apollyon class object that due to its nature cannot be contained. It is the designation given to our sun after an undisclosed event resulted in over 6.8 billion casualties with the first 24 hours. 001 is the exposure to ultraviolet rays that upon contact liquefy living organisms, with the effect spreading until the entire organism is converted, visually being similar to melting wax. Essentially, if you step out into the sunlight during the events of 001, you turn into a gelatinous mass, and inevitably when you make contact with another biological organism, you combine and blend at molecular level. Picture our world right now, but everything is made out of wax. I mean, everything. Then turn the heat up really high, and then everything wants to kill you. That's what SCP-001 will look like, and it's not pretty. Swinging in at number 2, SCP-2935. And conceptually, this is one of my favourite SCPs in the whole Foundation, although it's also perhaps the most bleak, so go figure. As the record states, SCP-2935 is a space-time anomaly that exists within a limestone cave beneath a cemetery near Joppa, Indiana. The anomaly in question is a nearly exact replicate reality of modern Earth in the year 2016, with one quite significant difference. All life, both biological and non-biological, as well as any sentient entities, machines, computers, and other lifelike phenomena, ended on April 20th, 2016. All life forms within 2935 suddenly and without warning expired sometime between the hours of 3 AM and 4 AM Eastern Time, the reason for which is currently uncertain. When I say all life, I mean all life. Even the alternate reality version of SCP-682, as in the hard to destroy reptile who can withstand any destructive effect, even he died. As it turns out though, there is a little bit more to this story, and it appears that the events of SCP-2935 happened after an SCP agent known as Keller entered this Earth from an alternative reality, but unbeknownst to him was himself an anomalous entity that when exposed to another version of reality brings about the end of all life. As SCP-2935 explains, Keller was caught in a time loop, and every other version of himself was destined to enter the same space-time anomaly at some point. To stop this, he nuked himself as well as the mobile task force accompanying him to bring an end to the time loop and stop the same effects spreading to our version of reality. What a hero. And thankfully the Foundation filled the hole with cement and just tried to forget about the whole thing. And finally, at our number 1 spot, SCP-610. And of course it has to be the classic scenario, a deadly pathogenic infection that could potentially spread across the planet and bring an end to all life as we know it. Although that would be the kind scenario because it doesn't exactly bring an end to all life, it seeks to consume it and turn it into a fleshy, amorphous mass of skin and limbs and eyes. There's a reason why this entry is nicknamed the flesh that hates, and you're about to find out exactly why. As the record states, on first look, 610 appears to be a contagious skin disease with symptoms including a rash, itching, and increased skin sensitivity. Within 3 hours of exposure, the disease will cause blemishes resembling heavy scar tissue that within 5 hours completely consumes the victim. The victim then appears to expire but will restart after several minutes, where the scar tissue on the victims then begin to move on its own accord and grow at a rapid rate. Victims have been observed growing extra limbs, elongating their heads, and splitting apart parts of their bodies where additional branches of flesh will grow. The thing is though, once infected, 610 seeks to aggressively spread itself over the nearest surfaced area, searching for other biological organisms that it can add to its mass. 610's only motivation is to consume the planet into one writhing, limb-filled mass of flesh. 7 billion people's worth. That's like an ocean's worth of flesh. Kicking off at number 5, SCP-169. And for this particular entry, we're going to be gently dipping our toe into the very specific and terrifying category that is anomalous entities that could potentially spell the end of the world. Let me introduce you to SCP-169, and you can happily rest assured that if it ever did set into play its apocalyptic chain of events and destroy the planet, there'd be literally nothing you could do to save yourself, given the fact that, technically speaking, SCP-169 kind of is the planet. Yeah, let me explain. 169 is the serpentine leviathan of nautical legend, the literal living definition of the serpent that wraps itself around the earth, Jormungandr of Norse legend, the leviathan of the Hebrew Bible, Tiamat of Mesopotamia. In the canon of the SCP Foundation, 169 is the living embodiment of all of them, and then some. As the record states, because of its size, 169 cannot and almost certainly will never be contained, given the fact that no structure on Earth is large enough or strong enough to contain it. The location of SCP-169 isn't precisely known, but satellite imagery has vaguely designated it as residing mainly in the southern Atlantic Ocean, possibly stretching to the tip of South America. The Foundation estimates that its body length is anywhere between 2,000 and 8,000 kilometers, and the creature itself is thought to have existed since the Precambrian era. I mean, it kind of goes without saying, but on its size alone, SCP-169 could simply cause a global tidal wave just by kicking out in its sleep. I mean, that's if snakes could kick, but you get the idea, right? The Leviathan is based on a legend as old as civilization itself, so it goes without saying that its prime directive is to bring an end to all life on Earth. Thankfully, it seems that the creature is dormant for now. Coming in at number 4, SCP-008. And whilst our previous entry is mythologically light-hearted enough, this particular entry in the Foundation's archives is based upon perhaps one of the most terrifying biological entities known to humanity, an infectious prion disease. Imagine every pandemic or contagion horror movie you've ever seen. Hell, roll in all of the Living Dead apocalypse films too, and they rarely come close to the startling efficiency of this particular zombie plague. In many ways, SCP-008 is the stereotypical breakdown of the virus that would beckon forth the zombie apocalypse. It's even got the whole by removing the head or destroying the brain trope too. But the scariest part of this entry is the suggestion of how our governments will react to having access to it. And that's a whole new level of fear, right? Biological zombie warfare. As the record states, 008 is a complex prion disease with 100% infectiousness, 100% lethality, transmission of which occurs through exposed mucous membranes and all bodily fluids. It's in the efficiency of 008 where the terror truly lies though, because, I mean, come on, even in the bleakest of pandemic horrors, there's some kind of cure or immunity. Nope, not in this case, because this is the SCP Foundation and there is no hope. As we also mentioned, this entry goes one further with the anxiety-ridden implication and states that although all known samples of SCP-008 have otherwise been securely contained with the utmost urgency for security, at some point in 1959 the Russian government took control of one of the discovered samples after working collaboratively with the SCP Foundation, the location of which is now otherwise unknown. Yeah, you know what I'm getting at, right? A zombie apocalypse arms race. That's a terrifying thought. Next up at number 3, SCP-3999. And just as a side note, this entry in particular is awesome and also utterly terrifying, and you'll be pleased to know that it's also vaguely reminiscent of one of my favourite short stories of all time, I Have No Mouth and I Must Scream, from the mind of the fantastic science fiction writer Harlan Ellison. And maybe that will give you a vague idea of the existential terror that lurks deep within 3999, because unlike the omnipotent dictatorship of the Allied master computer, this anomalous entity does things a little differently. You see, within Within the canon of the SCP Foundation, certain classifications of beings stir more fear than others, and perhaps the most terrifying are the ones that can manipulate the mind itself, and thus the nature of all reality. There are cognito hazards and memetic viruses alike, but 3999 is what is known as a reality bender, an otherwise corporeal entity of unknown origin that can manipulate and potentially destroy reality itself. Thankfully for us, 3999 seems fit to only take out its anomalous torturous desire on one individual in particular, a member of the Foundation staff by the name of researcher Talaran, who, much like the 5 victims of the Allied master computer in Ellison's story, is the perpetual mental slave of the 399 entity, caught in the eternal torment of both psychological and physical misery. Now, take my word for it, the terrifying reality-bending entity within this entry could very much bring about the end of the world with merely a snap of its fingers, but there's a very poignant ending to this Foundation piece that I'm relatively certain you Top 5 Scary Videos viewers will enjoy. Shout out to Lord Stonefish, the creator of this entry, because it's one of my personal favourite picks in the whole of the Foundation archives, and it's masterfully written. You know what, there'll be links down below. Swinging in at number 2, SCP-001, the Gate Guardian, otherwise known as Dr. Clef's proposal. And as you may know if you're familiar with the SCP Foundation on a whole, the first entry in the organization's archive, 001, isn't exactly clear in its portrayal. In fact, 001 is made up of over 30 different possible proposals as to what the entry in particular actually is, as in it may entirely be possible to be none of them, one of them, or even all of them. The one that we're concerned with though is perhaps one of its most popular, the Gate Guardian, which outlines knowledge of a colossal being made from pure energy that wields a sword with the ability to annihilate anything that passes too close, destroying it at an atomic level. If that's not already terrifying enough, the entity also guards the entrance to the Abrahamic Garden of Eden, located by anomalous means somewhere between the Tigris and Euphrates rivers, and has been doing so for as long as the Foundation has been around, and in fact inspired the Foundation to be created. And that may give you a semblance of an idea as to where we're going with this particular entry, because when we apply the end of the world to the Gate Guardian, what we really mean is the rapture, the end of days, the classical biblical depiction of hellfire, damnation, and death. And if that's not already bad enough, the Gate Guardian has technically already ended the world after leaving his post, opening the gate and letting an unknown entity pour forth into our world, where the Foundation subsequently declared an XK class end of the world scenario and pretty much went into has well and truly hit the fan mode. However, as the record states in SCP-001, knowledge of this event was actually sent through anomalous means from the future, warning the Foundation of the dangers that the Gate Guardian is currently containing. Now, all of this obviously could be hodgepodge, as it's very clear that it will never be certain as to which 001 proposal is true. But if it's this one, yeah, there's probably no coming back from this one. And finally, coming in at a number 1 spot, SCP-4023. And as a horror fan, this one is awesome, if not utterly terrifying, and conceptually speaking, SCP-4023 is perhaps one of the most horrifyingly original entries that I've seen in a long time. However, as with many things in the SCP Foundation, it does take quite a while to wrap your head around its technical intricacies. But once you do, yeah, you'll be like me and have the prior knowledge that this entry in particular is going to end really badly. Let me explain, and really all you need to do is keep the number 23 firmly in your mind. As the record states, 4023 is an Apollyon class object that is seemingly made up of a collection of 23 anomalous objects, events, and entities which are currently being investigated by the Foundation's researchers as to their true nature. Although they do already have an equally terrifying hypothesis, and it revolves around a figure referred to as SCP-4023-18, otherwise known as the Entity, an extra-dimensional malevolent force that is seeking to enter our dimension on the 2nd of March 2023. It is believed by the Foundation that this entity in question has been creating anomalies that relate to the number 23 in our world, as well as many other realities, in order to act as a nexus for its arrival into our plane of existence. Although only speculatively, its goal is to merge with the 13 current O5 council members, where it will enter a state of completion in which the entity will consist of 23 connected parts, the other 10 being comprised of itself and the 9 missing members of a previously extinct O6 council that were absorbed by the entity. Yeah, it's complicated, but that's the terrifying beauty of this particular entity. It's the fear of the unknown that drives its nightmarish narrative. We don't know what SCP-4023 will do, can do, or is already doing, but it does mean one thing. Whatever it is, it will more than likely herald the end of the world. But that's just another day for the SCP Foundation, isn't it?